With us, we focus in this section of our programme on the situation in Georgia. The Speaker of the Tbilisi Parliament is accusing Brussels, that's the European Union, of supporting extremism for not condemning a demonstration outside the presidential palace in Tbilisi on October the 5th. At the heart of the matter is a deep-seated conflict over the future of Georgia, its alliances and its democracy. Georgia, independent of course since 1991, but a country that Vladimir Putin sees very much as part of Russia's network. Today there are growing fears over how the very nature of political opposition could be suppressed in Georgia. There is a president there, of course, elected last December in a vote widely reported and condemned as corrupted by Russia. He is Mikhail Kevelashvili, but the woman recognised by France and the EU as the real president is with us here in the studio this evening. She is Salomé Zourabichvili. Thank you for being with us, madam.
Thank you very much.
We will hear her hopes and fears for her country after this report by James Vassana.
A last-minute decision that's thrown a spanner in the works for country diplomacy.
Due to participation in an unlawful rally and the dissemination of false statements yesterday, the Prime Minister has decided to cancel the planned meeting with the Finnish Foreign Minister.
Elina Valtonen, the Foreign Minister for Finland, as well as the head of the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe, known as the OSCE, met her Georgian counterpart on Tuesday.
These people are concerned about the direction that this country has been taking.
But after sharing a video online in which she joined protesters in Tbilisi and voiced her support for the movement that accuses the ruling party of authoritarianism, her meeting with the Prime Minister was called off.
We are here to support them.
This is precisely what we mean when we speak of the instrumentalization of international institutions, including their weaponization against Georgian democracy. Elina Valtonen used this visit to support radical groups and directly and blatantly violated Georgian legislation.
For over a year, demonstrators have been taking to the streets daily. These protests intensified at the start of October, when local elections were held, and as one group attempted to storm the presidential palace. The opposition says that the ruling Georgian Dream Party is seeking to drag the country back towards Russia and committed frauds in parliamentary elections that it won last year. Several international organisations have described the election as being marred by pressure and tension, and the EU Parliament as well as France don't recognise the results. The government rejects all of these claims.
James Vassana with that report. Let's bring in the President of Georgia, Salomé Zourabichvili, here in the studio. Thank you, madam, for being with us here at France 24. We appreciate you coming in. It's worth pointing out to people before we start, 2008, Russia mounted 2 land grabs in Abkhazia and South Ossetia. There has been this idea of Putin wanting to grab Georgia
20% of the
for many years. At this stage, what are your fears for your country?
The fear is that there is a process of Russia really capturing the state. What it's trying to do in Ukraine through military means, it's trying to do in Georgia without any cost practically, through a proxy regime that is taking laws that are really copycats of Russian laws and trying to suppress the civil society. Now the civil society has been protesting extremely peacefully. I have to underline that because the last events that are shown are really provoked by the regime and are not representing what was this peaceful movement, which is going to reach a year in 1 week, and during which there was not a car burnt or a window broken of any store. So that is the peaceful nature of this movement that is very important, that they try to discredit through this pseudo-attack, what I call the attack on the Winter Palace. But it's really a scenario that is known from autocratic regimes, that they need to show some intensified violence, radicalism.
So when you hear the Speaker of the Parliament saying what he said, when you hear what the Prime Minister was saying, clearly you're seeing behind that basically
Moscow.
A Moscow influence.
Yeah,
Plainly
they have
simple,
been
Moscow.
talking Moscow for now more than 2 years. Now we see that because there was the Finnish foreign minister present and it has received more coverage. But for 2 years they have been insulting all the Western ambassadors, the American ambassadors and the European Union, very harshly. There's been very aggressive tones. Lately, the German ambassador was recalled that Goebbels was also European and things like that. So it gives you the tone that they're using, which is really similar to what is we hear from Moscow.
And this accusation that there's European meddling in Georgia, it's almost a kind of smoke and mirrors distraction, is it not? Because the real meddling is coming from the Russian
First of
side,
all,
surely.
the real meddling is coming from Moscow, and it's not meddling, it's really they have captured the state through this meddling in elections and then through propaganda, through money that is coming to different groups in Georgia, where there is no basis to a populist movement. I mean, it's very different from Hungary or other countries. It's really directly Moscow-led movements. And this is something that is now carried through by the proxy regime with repressive, intensified repression almost every day that is getting worse.
You must have fears for what happens to the opposition in Georgia now.
Well, clearly the intent and the openly recognized intent is to suppress the whole opposition. There is currently, under an accelerated regime, a law that is processed in the parliament, which is designed to interdict the opposition parties, to interdict their members of organizing or creating a new party, and interdicting anyone to have any contact with the members of those parties as well. So it's really trying to kill the political process. And again, it's very similar to what has happened in Russia, maybe in a more accelerated way, because we have just recently received the status of candidate to the European Union, and suddenly, in less than 2 years, it's 180 degrees.
And this candidacy, this is written into the Georgian constitution, Article 27, if I remember correctly.
Article 78. But when we're talking about meddling and they're criticizing the European Union for meddling, I would say the contrary. I think that there is too complacent attitude from the European Union to what is happening, which is really a challenge to the European Union. Russia is telling the European Union, now you're trying to support and to rearm to help Ukraine, but meanwhile, silently, we're taking over Georgia, which is not less strategic because that controls the Black Sea and Central Asia, and even Armenia is dependent on what happens in Georgia. And we're doing that without you being able to react at all. And in fact, the European Union is not reacting.
This is a warning to Europe to wake up, basically.
There is no policy. And I'm telling Europe what happened in 2008 when Georgia was military aggressed and invaded, and nobody really reacted except the visit of the Baltic states presidents and the Polish president. But that was more moral support, but there was no other reaction. What is happening today is the same thing. Russia is testing a hybrid strategy in Georgia, whether it can cost less, really reoccupy or control, even if it's not an occupation, control and influence countries in its backyard. Without getting any reaction from the European Union. And for the time being, this test is for Moscow positive, much more positive than Ukrainian test, where it has more difficulties to, after 3.5 years, to have any progress, if not regress. So if that works, then Russia will continue in other places where it doesn't need to have common borders to really implement this new strategy. So we are a test case, and we need to get more attention on this test case so that it doesn't become a rule.
Madame Zourabichvili, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us here in France 24.
Thank you very much.
We've given you time to voice your concerns about your country, and clearly I think the message loud and clear to all our viewers about what is happening.
We are resisting, so help us to resist.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Salomé Zourabichvili, President of Georgia, joining us here in the studio. We take a very short break.